Hello and welcome to If You Know Your History. I am Johnny Owen and I am sat here with my good friend...
Mark Webster. I had to think about
dear
that for
friend.
a second, didn't I? Yeah.
You did, yeah.
Dear friend as well. But we're not alone, John.
We're not. We've got our first ever guest here, a very popular guest we've had on the first episode already, Chris Evans MP, somebody I was very keen to bring in, as you know,
Totally.
because he's the man to talk about this era of Leeds and their explosion into the British game and becoming arguably the best team in the country. And in the words of John Robertson, the great John Robertson, the best team he ever played against.
Yeah, and the problem I've got with Leeds is the fact that they managed to blow it in the replay against Chelsea, and as a young man from the south of England, making the Kings Road Kids the top of the pile was the worst part of the 70s of mine.
Tell you the story I love about that is the Wembley pitch had hosted the Host of the Year show, and it was a mud bath. So they spray painted it green so it looked good on television.
But they left in two of the jumps, which I thought was quite fun. Made for a great game.
I believe it's still up there. It might have been for a long time. John might be able to update us. It's the record audience for a football match ever, I think, the 70 final. Might even be the replay. It's up there. It was one of the ones. It had like, I don't know, 30 million or something.
Didn't Mark Clattenburg watch it again and said he'd abandon the match after 80 minutes because nobody would be on the pitch?
No, it wouldn't be that. But of course, they're at Old Trafford for the replay. And,
Yes.
And hey, this newfangled invention of the long throw, that's David Webb's winner. Comes from
Chelsea. That was the
Hutchison
only
on front.
time over 180 minutes Chelsea were in
in
front.
the lead.
Yes, only time.
And David Webb over the back of Jackie Charlton.
Oh, Jackie
which
Charlton.
is something to do.
But
isn't
Jackie
it?
Charlton takes his revenge, doesn't he? Is it? Yeah.
The replay attracted a British TV audience of more than 28 million.
There you
Wow.
go. That's a good bit of knowledge. Isn't
That's
it?
That is
good.
brilliant. I didn't even know that.
Behind the World Cup final. Which
Thank-
World Cup final? 70 or which World Cup would that be? 66, yeah, of course.
Johnny has no knowledge of
me
that
and Chris
one.
have a blank on that. Yeah, something happened in 66.
Thank you, Johnny Fives there again,
Thank you,
obviously,
our
with the
producer.
intel. Thank you very
Brilliant.
much.
So
for that.
let's start with Leeds United. He's a player. He's at Leeds. He's coming towards the end of his career. How does he end up with a manager's job, Chris?
Well, basically, they went through three managers. Jack Taylor was one of them, and the players actually voted at one point to get rid of the manager. He was absolutely useless. And what actually happened was you had Harry Taylor taking over the club, who was the millionaire. He wanted to pump money into the club, and also started becoming very friendly with Revie. They would start watching matches together. And Revie was getting frustrated at this point, but also what Revie knew was there were players like Billy Bremner, Norman Hunter, Gary Sprigg, Paul Reaney. They were all in the reserves. Now, he wasn't stupid. He was a student of the game. He knew these players were going to come through, and that was going to be the spine of the side.
Right.
Yeah? So he wanted to manage the side. And what he did, I think, he applied for the manager's job at Bournemouth, and Leeds wanted £6,000 for him. Knew Bournemouth couldn't afford him. And Harry Taylor decided, no, I want Don Revie as my manager. And the rest, as they say, is history. But it could all gone wrong in the first year.
What happened the first
Really?
year? Tell us.
Because then they got relegated. They were in the second division, as was then, and then they nearly went down. There was a very famous incident over the Easter weekend where allegedly, and it's in the book, and Bob Stoker came up with the story in 1977. Of course, when they're looking for lots of dirty stories about dirty Don Revie and his dirty dealings after the England manager, he reckons, he said, I'll give you a couple of quid to throw the game, he said. And Stoker said, no, Stoker allegedly... Stanley's principles, no way, Mr. Revie, I'm not paying you that money. To which Don said, as a typical pantomime, can I talk to your pliers then?
Oh, and I'm back in the room. Wow.
But it was never proved. And I always love this story about the book. There's allegedly a 330-page dossier sent from the Daily Mirror to the FA. Do you know what? I looked high and low for that, and I couldn't find any dossier with all the dirty dealings. No. Yeah.
No, he has a strange life as a manager because he's sullied often down there. But of course, the first time we know of this is were they Super Leeds first and then Dirty Leeds? Because basically you end up with his reputation is
Let's
based
talk
on
this.
them as a team.
He keeps them up in the second division. Obviously, they get promoted. But tell us a little bit about all these such legends or myths or whatever that he changes the colours to be more like Real Madrid.
He didn't change the colours.
He didn't?
He didn't.
No.
It's in the book. There's a picture of him as a player in 1961 wearing a white shirt. The
Okay.
shirt was changed to Jack Taylor in September 1961. They started playing with a white shirt from there on in. So they switched from blue and gold to white then. And a journalist came up to him and said, "Have you changed the shirt to look like Real Madrid?" Revie, having his eye on publicity, went, "Yes, we did," and that's it.
Right.
So it was as simple as that. So they were playing in white shirts long before he became the manager.
Yes.
And Jack Charlton even said that as well. You know, the only reason they started playing white was nothing to do with Real Madrid anyway. It was easy to pick up the players. And at that point, you only had Derby County, and I think Tottenham were playing in white. I can't think of any, and Preston would have been another club.
They did in those days. Yeah. So you mentioned those young men that are going to come through and become like they're the nucleus of the team. That I mean, I know I could sprout off that 11 for you.
But isn't it a story, just quickly, isn't it a story that he engineered this sort of feeling there? That didn't he go to Bremner's house or something? There was a story that he went up to see him in Scotland.
It wasn't a happy ship there. I mean, Jack Charlton wasn't happy.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Jack Charlton,
he wasn't happy with Jack Charlton. I mean, he said to Jack Charlton, he said, if I ever became manager in this club, you're the first one out the door. You're just not interested. And he had a right go at him. And actually, when Don became manager, Jack said, well, that's me out of the door. You know what I mean? And actually tried to tap up a move, engineer a move to Manchester United with his brother.
That's right.
And also Bill Shankly was in for it. And Liverpool wouldn't give him the funds.
Wouldn't give him the funds, and Shankly was furious about it.
Can you imagine
and
the
signed
difference?
Ron Yates year after and said, if you don't sign this player, threatened to walk out. And what's interesting with Jack Charlton, I was reading this thing that he was dropped for half a season in the mid-50s. Check this out, for partying too hard.
Yeah.
Jack loved going out and having a pint.
To be honest with you, the Ireland manager, Jack Charlton, was something of a clue.
Something of a
clue
clue.
that
But
you might argue.
that's why I think he was the best international manager, because he had hinterland, he had outside interest. Didn't he?
Yes.
He was into field sports, he liked drinking, he liked betting. He wasn't really... Football was... There's a brilliant... I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's a brilliant piece of footage where he meets his brother and he's giving him rabbits that he shot for
That's
dinner.
right.
Like, it's brilliant. You know what I
It's
mean?
for the game, isn't it?
Yeah, but Terry Venables said, I love going to Leeds. He said, Jack would always the best cloths. I bring them back for the tailors down here, you know.
Yeah, that's right, because he had his own little tailors as well, didn't he? So,
But there's a hugely pivotal moment. All Leeds fans sort of talk about it, and it's Bobby Collins, apparently. Tell us what happens. He signs Bobby Collins. Is that a big moment?
Bobby Collins was... I spoke to Johnny Giles, and I said, Johnny, well, why did you know... You obviously felt with Matt Busby, you want to leave Manchester United. Blackburn Rovers are coming in for you. They're the first division. Why do you go to Leeds? He said two words, Bobby Collins. And Bobby Collins was, I think, he'd be diagnosed as a freelance psychopath these days. You know, somebody once told me that he lost his head over somebody took his peg in the Everton dressing room. You know what I mean?
So before a whistle, he'd been heard.
He fell out with everyone. He was the type of bloke who started fighting in an empty house. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
But he apparently just before the 1965 FA Cup final, Norman Hunter accidentally kicked the ball into his face, and he was on top of Norman Hunter punching him, and Jack Charlton split them up. You know what I mean? Yeah. But what he did was again not a happy ship. Bremner was very. We go back to what you said about Bremner being homesick, wanted to be with his girlfriend and Hibernian came in for him as well.
That's right. Yeah.
But also there was the issue with Bobby Collins.
Scottish.
Harry Catrick believed that Billy Bremner was going to go to Everton in exchange for Bobby Collins. And what Revie said to him, give me Bobby Collins. I've got to keep Bremner for a couple of months. He said, you can have him then. He waited a long time for Bremner to be in the conclusion. He's still waiting, isn't he?
Wow. So that comes back to my feeling about this is that obviously you say he's got these kids coming through. Is there much old guard for him to get out of the way to start building this contemporary team?
He gets 25 players out of there.
Really?
Yeah, he gets that squad completely, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then you get... But Billy Bremner, why he was close to Billy Bremner, he roomed with Billy Bremner. He was the captain of the side when he first came to Leeds as well. Bremner looked up to him. You know, I think Alex Ferguson says in his book, in his leadership, he said, younger players like it when an older, more famous player looks after them, you know, and takes interest in them. And I think that was the relationship with Bremner. Bremner felt, this is fantastic. This is the great Don Revie, Footballer of the Year, looking out for me. You know what I mean? I think that was a big thing for him.
Well,
he's
making them all household. I mean, the household name for me that I remember forever is Alan Clark.
Who came later. Sniffer came
exactly.
later.
So he comes in later. But the reason that
Leicester,
is, in my football card that I got of him that season, they transferred him. So he's still in his Leicester shirt. And on the bottom of the card it says, Alan Clark, Leicester City, transferred to Leeds United. So just before that went off to the printers, they still got him in his Leicester shirt. And it's all got Leicester stuff. And they managed to change the words.
There's a brilliant story about it. Actually, when he signed Sniffer, he was in bed with gastroenteritis. And he charmed his wife downstairs. So basically, Elsie's... family still lived in Leicester, so he'd take her to go and see her sisters and thought, I'll pop in and see you can get Sniffer. And he sat down with his wife and charmed her over tea and stuff like that. She went upstairs and said, Don Revie, he's a lovely fella. When you sign for him?
Just before we go to the break, because we've got to end the part, it's fascinating for me. What was it then that he engineered in such devoted sort of... the players would have died for him. How did he engineer that? What was it, do you think, Chris, that he imbued in the club?
I think it's simple. He understood them and he was interested in them. You know, that was the thing. He said himself, that the only place he ever felt like he was at home was at Leicester when he was with the Duncan family. He was best friends with Elsie's brother and things like that. He'd go out together, and he married Elsie, and he wanted that sort of club atmosphere there. They were all being looked at. And if you talk to people like, who didn't even make it, like Sonny Sweeney said, his mother loved him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what he would do is have a specific Christmas party for the youth players where he'd give them cufflinks, and it'd always be from Don and Elsie. So there was always this feeling that his door was always open to them. That's what he instilled in them,
Wow, it's a real sort of it's a family, isn't it?
It's a family, yeah. He's replicating what he's trying to create what he never had in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wanted that family club, and he wanted a family in real life.
Yeah, but he had to put the moat down though for this Leeds team eventually.
Well,
didn't he?
here's a question. Which for the end half, who did Leeds beat in the 1965 FA Cup semi-final, which lots of people say was the beginning of an astonishingly intense rivalry? Join us after the break and we'll let you know. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of If You Know Your History. We're doing a deep dive on Don.
We are.
Don Revie, the legendary manager of Leeds United, one of the great teams of the late 20th century in Britain, no doubt.
Infamous as well, as we'll discover.
Yeah, well, they did.
Yeah.
They carried this reputation, which we can talk to Chris about, which was kind of like, I always thought, brought back to life a little bit by Soccer AM when Tim Lovejoy used to start shouting dirty Leeds. I've
Yes.
mentioned Leeds. Resurrected, really, from the sort of that 70s period. But we left you with a question, and we asked you which team did they famously beat in an FA Cup semi-final. One of the most famous FA Cup semi-finals ever, you'd say, because it was such a gargantuan battle. And they beat Manchester United.
Right,
And
yeah.
it was a famous game because of the rivalry. It was at Hillsborough. There was a lot of trouble. Even sort of an early sort of indicator of where football was going to go in the late 60s.
Early incarnation of that, isn't it?
And a lot of trouble on the pitch where the players were described as being fighting like uncontrolled rats by somebody in one of the newspapers. And Chris was just mentioning, there's a famous photograph, Chris, isn't there?
Yeah, with Dennis Law with the collar of his shirt still around his neck, with the shirt taken off him.
Just wearing the collar?
Yeah.
Carry on playing then.
Off, carry on.
It's and a lot of people would say that this, which we're going to do a little bonus episode on, the intense rivalry between Liverpool and
it's a story of its own,
the
isn't
intense
it?
rivalry
Yeah.
between Leeds and Manchester United, which is beautifully sort of like imbued now in the red of Manchester United, the white of Leeds, Yorkshire, Lancashire.
Yes.
It's all sort of there in the battle. There was the other sort of cotton, wool. There's so many lovely parallels, and also Liverpool and Manchester United has become the rivalry really in domestic British football. There's no two ways about it. In an English sense, especially, the Celtic and Rangers, of course, but the Manchester United Leeds is very interesting because I have Manchester United friends and Leeds fans, and they do not like each other at all.
No.
They don't play each other as regularly because Leeds' fortunes
Well,
fluctuate.
that was a fixture to look out for when they're promoted, wasn't it?
Yes,
It's a big
yeah. But in the late 60s, early 70s, I would probably say, certainly in a physical sense, off the pitch, it was more intense than Liverpool at that point.
I can imagine.
Manchester United Leeds, it was dangerously sort of intense, wasn't it?
And it's weird because, Chris, I mentioned at the start there, that 1970 Cup final was pivotal for me at my age. And then the Leeds that then subsequently we all came to know and love / hate was the team. It was like 5-6 years build up to that, which I don't think was aware of. The 60s,
wasn't it?
I mean, 65, they nearly won the double.
Right.
I mean, you reached the final against Liverpool, and there's a lovely scene talking about Jackie Charlton. Kenneth Woolston was commentating, and Jackie Charlton, the ball boy's a bit slow throwing the ball back in. Jackie Charlton kicks him at the backside, right? And all Kenneth Woolston does is, Jackie Charlton showing a bit of frustration there with the ball boy.
and in another era, and he's now doing 3 years
No,
in prison.
you can't do that now. Yeah, and they lost out the league title goal average to Manchester United.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, we talked earlier about Chelsea were in the mix that year as well.
Yes.
And Tommy Dockley suspended all his best players.
He did,
and,
yeah.
They fell apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he helped out Leeds there on that one, in that particular
You're
case.
very pleased with that.
So are we seeing that mid-60s to the 70s, are we seeing this player transition happening during that time as well? Or has he already started building this famous post-70
I mean, the
team?
spine of the side is there from the moment they came up from the second division.
Right.
I mean, they came up the year after Liverpool came up. So already, I would say 1965 was the start of those new emerging powers. Liverpool and Leeds. Liverpool hadn't done anything really since the Second World War. Leeds had never done anything. Suddenly, it's quite interesting when Leeds and Liverpool walked out. Only Revie and Shankly and Giles are playing the cup final.
Yeah.
Would you believe? The two
Wow.
managers and Johnny Giles were the only ones who played in the cup final.
So they're all fresh
So you
to
can
the
see how
market.
new it was.
Course,
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Johnny, and interestingly, Johnny Giles plays in the '63 Cup final, isn't he? Which for Manchester
3-1
United.
against Leicester, yeah.
And Busby's not having him. He blames him, doesn't he, for that game? And he sells him. And Johnny Giles goes on to be one of the greatest Irish player ever, in my opinion, and have a stellar career with Leeds. And kind of like it's set again this Manchester United Leeds rivalry. It's there, isn't it?
But it's also that siege mentality. The last thing that Johnny Giles says to Matt Busby is, "I'll show you."
Yeah.
You know, it's already, and it also feeds into the siege mentality is building around Bobby Collins and
Yes.
building around Don Revie as well.
Billy
Us against the
Bremner,
world.
yeah.
Billy Bremner was there, you know.
Yeah.
Was it 5'3" or barbed wire they called him? You know what I mean? It's like, it's there, you know.
Yes.
There's only Dave Mackay who seemed to match up to him in that famous photograph. Johnny Giles, therefore, is such an interesting catalyst in this story.
Yeah.
And obviously someone that you talked to. Did he touch on the fact that, of course, he was an artist? You know, that was the nature of him as a football player, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Was he deliberately in that team to be that guy surrounded by other players that would sort of complement
Well,
him?
he played out on the right, and then Bobby
Yeah.
Collins then left and went to manage Morton. Then he moved into the centre, which then became the famous central midfield of
Quite.
Bremner and Giles. You know, yeah, but he could play, but he was also really strong. I mean, he
was tough, wasn't he?
Really tough. I mean, I think he had his leg broken, didn't he? And he said, "I'll never." And like Don Revie was hurling out of tackles, that'll never happen to me again. And I think Jack Charlton said in his biographies, "Yeah, John, somebody broke your leg, so you're gonna break everybody else's leg as well."
Yeah.
But you know, he's a great guy though, Johnny is. I mean, still to this day, fantastic on modern football as well.
He's a big pundit over in Ireland, isn't he?
Yeah,
They
brilliant.
talk much more
And there's
freely than British.
There's a brilliant piece of footage on YouTube. Eamon Dunphy and him go at it.
Yeah.
They're good friends as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Where they go at it about Terry Venables potentially being appointed the Republic of Ireland manager. It's brilliant.
John Robertson said to me that they had everything that Leeds team. You know, they could mix it, they could score goals, they could play around you, they could do everything. And I think that's really interesting that he sort of created this team with as a man so obsessed with tactics. It was almost like the perfect football team in a way.
They were very, very drilled though. Very, very drilled. That early side, they called it the method team, where he just drilled them over and over
Did
again.
he?
And he said himself, there was a mistake. He said he didn't really let them off the leash until about 1969. And then you see them change from dirty Leeds to Super Leeds. And if you want to talk of the dirty Leeds point, yeah, you have that semi-final with Manchester United. But you also the Battle of Goodison as well.
Right.
Where the teams were taken off for a couple of minutes just to cool down.
Go and cut.
Yeah.
Naughty
And-
step to
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because Derek Temple was carried off. He was knocked unconscious by Bobby Collins.
That would
you know what I mean?
help.
So, you know, there was all these incidents which hit the press. You know, this is where Dirty Leeds came from. But they were very, very drilled. You know, Norman Hunt and, you know, the freebies, where Don Revie had this theory that there would be a freebie. So you would slide in, right, you'd have a warning, yeah?
Yeah.
And he said the next time you get booked, he said, so use your freebie. So Norman, slide in, use your freebie. Jack, when he's used his freebie, you use your freebie and slide in, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah. So he knew all the sort of the dark
Norman
arts as
hadn't
well.
used up a lot of other people's freebies. I seem to remember.
Well,
but there you
that's
go.
that brilliant line. Somebody walked on the training ground and said to Revie, he said, Norman's broke a leg. And Revie said, who's he done this time?
What was his training like, Chris? What was the well drilled?
He's a bit like Ferguson. None of those greats really spent a lot of time actually one-to-one training. They would watch, you know what I mean? So there was a lot of five-a-sides and things like that, you know, and close control. But they would watch and see what was going on. Who was having a good day? Who was having a bad day? But I think ultimately that you can't talk about Revie without talking about the superstition.
Yeah.
This is the thing that really killed him. You know, I think in this day and age with modern managers, you can leave no stone unturned. You can monitor players' tendons, heart rate, you know, generally how they're feeling. He couldn't do that in those days, so he would look at superstition. And I love the fact that you said, the Chelsea-Leeds game, he said when Chelsea went 2-1 up in extra time, he had a vision of Chelsea equalising. He said he had a premonition of it. And he tried to run across the pitch to one of the players. The policeman stopped him.
You're
He was
joking.
invading the pitch. And he was trying to shout to Bremner, keep your shape. They're going to equalise.
but if
he
that
believes
sentence-
he had a premonition. Yeah, you reckon he saw it.
I was going to say, if he's running across the pitch saying, keep your shape, I've had a vision, it would be a slightly weird piece of coaching, wouldn't it, at that stage? But the first superstar number 12 came out that Leeds team, which was Paul Madeley. I remember it distinctly again as a kid because he ends up in the England and he plays, I think, in every position on the pitch except goalkeeper famously. But I know that in your head there's a reason why they arguably didn't win as much as possible because before there was a 12th man, they were worn out.
Well, how many FA Cups did reduced to 10 men?
Yeah.
I mean, it's famously, you know, it's that didn't Ray Wood get chopped down in 1957 playing for Man United and come back on as an outfield player? You know, it was you've bear in mind, by the time you've played 60 games, that's 11 you've played 60 games. It was fatigue got him in the end,
Yeah.
I think. But I do think, if you do look at it, 65 they should have won it. 72 they should have won it. That was not that offside goal against West Bromwich Albion, probably done for them, you know what I mean? And they won it in 74. So at least they should have had 2 more than they had, And he practically gave up in 1970 as well when Everton won it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if it comes like 73, the Sunderland game, I mean, like the save is ridiculous.
And it's a dire game, though. I don't know if you watched it all the way through. It's a really hard watch. It's a dire game.
No, it weren't pretty, but Jim Montgomery makes you think that it was something special, doesn't it?
It's that snippet of Peter Lorimer.
Yes, with the shot.
Yeah.
I'd say it was worth mentioning as well because, again, given the impression that we have of this kind of rather, charismatic, charisma-free fella, Don Revie as a manager, he brings in this fella who he thinks he's bringing to do PR called Paul Trevelyan.
Yeah, the Beaver.
The Beaver, as he called him. Called him the Beaver because
I seen
he
him
was
the other day, actually. He's still around.
He's still around.
Yeah,
He's a very busy man. He used to write for the Eagle. He did the You Are the Refs.
Yeah.
More importantly, he had a record released as the best worst singer, and he was world speed kissing champion.
Which he retained the title.
Did he
Told me
really?
the other day he retained the title there.
Kept it, did he just keep kissing quickly throughout the year,
I don't think so.
or did he come back?
He came back.
He
yeah.
bounced back.
Yeah.
But of course, he also invented the pencil grip in golf. I mean, it's just. But he gets it. So the true story, and I bet there is one somewhere in the middle of it. I bet you got to it as well, Chris. I know him because, of course, everybody knows him because of that Leeds kit, the smiley badge, and the soccer tags. But this whole thing is sort of Paul Trevelyan inspired, or did Don Revie like to claim a lot of that?
There's two issues here. Paul's a Tottenham fan, actually.
Yeah,
and he wrote to
yeah.
Bill Nicholson and he said, "Oh, can I come along? I got all these ideas." And Paul said, "No," and Bill Nick said, "No, he's not. It's not my type of thing. Go to Don Revie," and Don Revie was interested.
Yes,
because but the other thing was there was a Patents Act in Parliament, using my day job, of course, which allowed teams to produce a football strip. And the first people who got involved that was Admiral. Of course, we're Admiral based in Leicester. Where was Elsie's family living? Leicester.
Well,
got very close to Burt Patrick, and that's where the Leeds smiley face came from.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who thought it? I mean,
That's great
because
knowledge.
it is that innovative and it was that new, and yet it was so homespun.
Yes.
As an idea.
And I do wonder if that's why they got such a massive following, because that was the only kit you could get.
Yeah, so
was
true.
the Leeds Admiral one.
First V-neck with a collar, I can remember. Everything about it was all brand new.
Yeah, it was. And it is a fanatical following. I mean, and what was the city of Leeds like during the 60s with the rise of him? Did they start getting big crowds?
What was the motorway city? It was,
Right.
I think it was absolutely buzzing up there at that point. It was really the place to be.
Yeah. And the team sort of rode, and one team city, really, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. If you read Soccernomics, they say most cities can only, except for London, can actually only hold one team. This is why you see in the Manchester City, Manchester United access turning, because they get access to the better players, they get the money in. It's a strange one. But Leeds are a captive audience, I think.
Did it start to unravel for him, or was there a kind of big finish at Leeds before Revie ceases to be their manager?
Well, he won the title in '74, didn't he? So he had another crack at the European Cup. I mean, it's interesting. He had one crack at it. And that was 1970 when they went out to Celtic, which I do think is the biggest attendance, isn't it? I'm looking at the
Johnny Fives.
It's the biggest crowd ever.
Biggest crowd ever.
130,000 at Hampden Park.
Names and addresses, please, John.
They play in Hampden Park in the semi-final. That's why it's a record. It's 130,000, I think.
That's nuts.
It's mental, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they played this game, and it's really interesting because Steen, it's really seen as the Battle of Britain. This game, it's huge. Obviously, biggest crowd ever in the European Cup. But Steen and Revie is a big part of it. And Steen does this really famous interview where he goes, "I just don't listen to the English press. They're not impartial. They're more like disciples of the English game." He kind of sort of says that. Steen.
So he's just being dismissive about the whole thing.
But he's just going like, he's saying the press has so much going on. You're gonna and Celtic win. They beat Leeds over 2 legs. But Celtic then, famously, are overconfident and lose to a very good final team in the final.
Which kicks off the whole Netherlands early 1970s dominance.
Yeah.
So we've got to thank Celtic for that then. Okay.
Jock Steen and Celtic.
Yeah.
But again, go on, John.
Highest ever at UEFA match. There was actually it was 136,500 people.
Yeah.
And that's just the ones they counted, is it?
The ones who paid.
It was an English international.
That's right. That's right. That's it. That's the biggest crowd ever. Record crowds are always broken in Glasgow.
Yes.
Until the Maracana, the world record crowds are always in Glasgow.
You just can't picture it.
I mean,
can
you think 130,000, 30-odd thousand is a big crowd.
Oh,
What's
yeah, exactly.
100,000 in there, like, do you know what I mean? It's like, what?
Have you had a lovely view, I'm sure, of that one there?
Well, it is a famous photograph of the one in 36. It's an aerial shot. It is astonishing.
Really?
Hampden. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But that year, the European Cup, that year, though, he jacked the title in for that one, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he let Everton actually have it. He didn't try. He was fielding weakened sides. He got fined for that as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
But, which, of course, you think, again, is a contemporary phenomenon. But so it was that glaringly obvious.
But I think
they punished him.
that's the argument, is turned into the proper siege mentality, that the Football League wasn't helping him out in terms of fixtures congestion. So he felt then that, it's us against the world. And that's when you're starting to see the Revie we know and love, that sort of turns his way from Clough in the Damned United and things like that.
And also, it's really interesting that in the famous interview where talking about the European Cup, and I never realised that, where obviously Clough says to him, I believe it was a fraction, Don, whether you want to go at the European Cup or at a crack at the England job. And he says, that's right. Yes, I was so close to the players, he said. Yeah. So he actually was very close to staying to have a crack
I
at that
massaged them down with my bare hands. You didn't do that, did you, Brian? They wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let me, Don.
Oh, my. Clough's to the right of me, Clough's to the left of me.
No, I believe Johnny.
I believe, Mark.
You'll be delighted to know I'm not going to have a go at this.
If you have 5 minutes and you are on the internet, YouTube the debate between Clough. He's just been sacked as manager of Leeds United, famously only been there 44 days. And Austin Mitchell, who became an
That's
Labour
right.
MP after,
That's right.
who was the host there, he persuades Clough to come into the studio and kind of like hijacks the interview by bringing in Don Revie.
Springs Don Revie on it.
If you watch it, it explodes halfway through. The point when Brian says to Don, he goes, Don is a cold man. And straight away, Don, me? Cold?
Yeah.
It's really.
So that's when the
that
burst,
was the bit when he lost it.
And he's not a cold man.
He's not a cold man,
He's
no.
not a cold man.
No.
That's the irony there.
I hosted a cocktail party for my staff at the FA. What did you do?
Oh, wow. Okay, this is good, because this gets us to this somewhat dour figure that we think he is. But also what's now interesting is, if he's got this relationship with the FA, which is based on what was happening when he was at the club level, how the hell does this all come together in becoming an England manager?
Well, I think even Stiffer Clark said once. He said, "You signed up for England." He said, "You picked for England." He said, "You're injured." He said, "I'm not injured, Don." He said, "You're injured." He said, "Tell me you're injured." And he said, "I can't do that." He said, "Who pays your wages?"
Yeah.
So I think with Don had that attitude, what was he expecting from fellow managers? He was doing that as well. I don't. And the other thing I think as well, with the England job, Elsie'd retired, and I think he was looking for something a bit more part-time, and he thought the England manager's job, I think he said himself, I stress out for 60 games a season.
Right.
I only have 12 games over 4 years. I don't think and at that point, I didn't think he had any inkling of how much the tabloid was going to be interested in who the England manager was.
Yeah.
You know, because I spoke to journalists who were covering England in the 80s, and they said if there was a slow news day, they would just put on there, all the players want Robson out. You know?
Well, you would assume from this way that we know the story goes, is that the contemporary version that we think started as journalism out to hound the England manager, that's Don Revie's time, isn't it? Because he takes over from Joe Mercer, doesn't he? Who was caretaker and nearly stayed on doing Coventry and England, but didn't quite happen.
Yeah.
So this is when he comes in, isn't it?
And I think, but the thing is, it's how much, if you read the papers at the time, and I read a lot of the papers at the time, it's how much optimism there is about Don Revie coming in. This is the best manager. He's the Sun endorsing him. You know what I mean? England need the best manager, and they've got him. You know, and also there's this. What's interesting as well, a boxing sort of analogy as well. The night that they played Czechoslovakia, 30th of October 1974. What happens later on in the early hours of the morning? Muhammad Ali knocks out George Foreman. The icon of the 60s suddenly is coming back. England beat Czechoslovakia 3-0. Suddenly England are coming back. There's this feeling of optimism again. And this is, don't forget, this is all before the industrial strikes of the mid to late 70s as well. There is a feeling suddenly that something new is coming here, you know, which we don't think of contemporary-wise now anymore. Yeah.
Wow. And so what is England career then, Chris? I mean, tell us roughly what happens there. It's a bit of a disaster.
Well, I think what happens, it all goes wrong in the European Nations Cup. If they fail to qualify for that, fail to get a seed in, and end up in a group with Italy. And the fact is, Italy are on the rise a little bit. You know, this is 1976. By 82, they're going to be world champions.
Yeah.
Dino Zoff's in the side. They
Yeah.
play Capello, Fabio Capello's on the
right,
side as well. But it's not so much about with all these, and they end up in a group where there's only one qualifier. It's either England or Italy. Now, what you could say is England, Italy will cancel each other, which they did. Italy beat England 2-0, and in the reverse fixture under Ron Greenwood at the time, they won 2-0. But what you've got to do is they had Luxembourg and they had Finland on that side. You've got to knock up cricket scores against those people because it's about your goals for or goals average at that point. They didn't perform against those sides in the way they should have.
Couldn't
I
do
mean,
it.
what you've got to worry about is if you beat Luxembourg 5-0, Italy could beat them in 3 months' time 7-0.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
and
you've
that-
got
and
a
there's the
two-goal
difference.
deficit. There's nothing you can do
There's
about
the
it.
difference.
And also the amount of players he picked.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because we've got a good sense of how he was with players from what you described him with his Leeds days. And I noticed, for example, he dropped both Alan Ball and Emily Hughes, so two leaders of the England team at any point. Wasn't picking people like Charlie George and Alan Hudson, these kind of young dynamic men that are coming through. So how is he kind of cobbling together this unit?
There's a question for you. Which Scottish international was called up for England? And they found out later they got it wrong.
John Robertson.
Correct.
Yeah.
Got it in one.
Was he Robert going to be there?
He had this talk
had
in
to-
Manchester.
What
He
might
had to
have
say in
been.
his very strong Glaswegian accent, I'm not actually English, you know. But there was a weird thing happened where we all remember. It was where you were born, you played that country, and famously Joe
Baker's the one,
who
isn't
was
he? Yeah.
as Scottish as they come, whose father happened to be in England, or his mother stationed, I think.
Yes.
And he was born in England and brought up, a week later took back to Scotland, and he had to play for England.
England, yeah, so true.
But I think what he was, he's very influenced by the press. I think what he was very aware of, that Alf Ramsey had a terrible relationship with the press. You know, he started doing things like when they come in, he put sandwiches and tea on for them or whatever. But he started listening to them as well. Like he didn't would he have really fancy Charlie George? Nah, too much of a flair player.
Exactly.
Stan Bowles, but they all played. Malcolm MacDonald, they weren't his type of players. But what I found interesting, the Alan Ball example, considering he's got outstanding managerial skills and management skills at Leeds, he writes a letter to Alan Ball, the last surviving member of the 1966 World Cup winning squad, captain of the side, and he says, writes a letter, you're no longer in the side, we won't need your services anymore, and it's written, signed in his absence, but dictated by Don Revie, the England manager. Now, why did he do that?
God, that's a low
No,
blow.
yeah, but why did he do that? That's so out of character for him. That's not the type of thing he would do. So I don't know what was happening there.
He's not himself. You're right.
He's not himself.
He's not himself. Elsie's retired. It's like as if he's gone, And obviously he takes. So this was like, it's really hard to explain to people listening to this now. I was a kid, I kind of remember. He resigns and he goes to Dubai. It's a bombshell, wasn't it? It was like,
Because
it led the news, didn't it?
No
You
one
know what I mean?
knew a football would ever arrived in the United Arab Emirates, let
No.
alone a football manager. It's
But
such
to
a
suddenly
strange
leave
thing.
the sort of England job out of the blue, really, it was.
But
wasn't
also
it?
he made a fool of the tabloid journalists because he gave the exclusive to Jeff Powell of the Daily Mail.
That's right.
Right.
Mail, wasn't
And
it?
they were all running around going, if you remember, Tommy Docherty had been sacked that same week.
Yeah.
So what were all the tabloid journalists thinking, not having the information, thinking, oh, well, Don Revie's resigned as England manager, Tommy Docherty's been sacked, Don Revie's going to be the next manager of Manchester United. That's really what they were thinking. Then suddenly, Dubai came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
There was
So-
there was
And this is
questions.
not Dubai now. This is
No, it's
Dubai
not.
when it was a very
As I say,
different
this
place.
is very
yeah.
much, a burgeoning world, but
Yeah.
barely had started, to be honest. He misses a friendly, doesn't he, in Brazil?
Yeah.
He says he's scouting, but he's going out to get the job.
His wife
Now-
had already gone out there first. Do you know when Scotland ripped up the Wembley Stadium
Yes.
in '77? Elsie was already there scouting out the place.
No.
Yeah, he knew that as
now,
well. Yeah.
I'm going to assume that given the fact that the relationship with him and the FA weren't great in the first place, we might argue,
Yeah.
by now, this is where it starts to get poisonous.
Yeah, I think it was poisonous from the beginning.
Oh, really?
Harold Thompson forced out, who was the chair of the FA. It was also Margaret Thatcher's tutor at Oxford and had earned an Oxford Blue playing amateur football. But it's so strange, isn't it? It's such a working class sport. It's run by aristocrats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's
amazing.
I remember watching. I remember watching in lockdown, watching the 1979 FA Cup final, and Thompson's smoking this massive fat cigar, right, like that, in front of what was then Prince Charles. Prince Charles is doing this. Wafting it away, right? And he still carries on, oblivious.
Do you know,
Yeah.
toffs in the possettes? I never thought how did that happen?
And would sort of tell us about what happened to him in his later years and what happened to him in Dubai. Did he have any kind of success? And where did he end up?
It never really happened in Dubai either.
No.
I mean, and then he went, then he sort of managed a club side there, won championships. Well, what was the level there? We don't know.
No.
Then he went to Egypt, but he had a strange flirtation with QPR.
Did he?
Yeah. Alan Murray got sacked. Terry Venables had gone to Barcelona at this point.
Right.
Alan Murray got sacked. And Jim Gregory, infamous Jim Gregory, offered him the job.
Wow.
And there's all sorts of footage. People like Peter Hacker, who's the goalkeeper, saying we don't know who he is, and he was actually giving interviews saying, "I've been out of the game for 7 years, but I think I've known enough over 40 years to get out there again." And he wanted the job. And then suddenly Jim Gregory said, "No, he's been too greedy," and ended the negotiations. But he came close to getting, and he was always linked with like sides like Arsenal, Manchester City. I think when Leeds sacked Eddie Gray, there was a story there about Johnny Giles being the manager and him being this supremo. You know, it was all this sort of thing. But it was. He spent most of his time with golf.
Where did he sort of end his days then? Did he sort of retire somewhere?
Edinburgh.
In Edinburgh?
Yeah, he died in Edinburgh, in a Bupa hospital in Edinburgh. He moved back there because back to Loch Eckley, where Elsie was from. He promised to live in a bungalow, but by that point, there was obviously problems. He had shooting paint up the back of his legs. He thought it was discs. Unfortunately, it was motor neuron disease.
It's an amazing book that he's written.
And that's the worst. That's the hardest chapter.
Yeah, exactly. I bet it was. Yeah. But
he didn't shy away. That was the important thing about him. You think about how 80s, how disability was an illness was looked at. You know, it's not like it is today.
Yeah.
You know. He still turned up his testimonial in a wheelchair,
Wow.
loaded with drugs. Bobby Collins was there for him, Billy Bremner, a young Paul Gascoigne scored in a 2-2 draw. Souness was there, Keegan was there. They all turned up this testimonial for him. You have to leave after 22 minutes because he was so overcome with emotion.
Wow.
But he was there.
That's amazing.
You know, even though the image of Don Revie as the big supreme on the sheepskin coat, big fella, he was there in that wheelchair that day, and I think that's shows how brave he really was.
It certainly does. And as I say, that get the book, the Don Revie, the biography, which is written
fantastic.
by your good self. And I just to kind of finish on that point as well, because we mentioned at the start that you, when the book was first published, was part of this idea of going, getting the FA to put their hands up and say, we did bad at some point there. How did that end up resolving itself, or didn't it?
They didn't resolve itself. No,
Terrible,
they said it was too long. It was too long ago. But I just think, what would it cost them to say sorry after all these years?
Yeah.
And I mean, just at the end of the day, what did he do wrong? Like millions of people in the world today are going to walk into their jobs and they're going to resign because they just don't like it. Yeah. And what was that all about?
Yeah, you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, you're allowed to do that. So why destroy his reputation just because it's a job I don't want to do no more?
No.
You know?
And also, it's been a brilliant 2 episodes. I'm fascinated to find out about him and the way he worked. And I'd just like to finish by asking Chris, what do you think his legacy is in modern football? What do you think he brought to the game?
I think he is modern football.
Really?
I honestly think the stats, you can relate it back to those dossiers. The football kits all the kids are wearing.
Yeah.
Sorry, mums and dads, Christmas is coming. I know myself how expensive they are. But that's down to him as well,
Yeah.
Everything, diet, exercise. I think, to be honest with you, and I have a lot of Liverpool Manchester fans abusing me for this, but in terms of legacy, I think he is one of the most, if not the most important manager we've had in this country.
Fantastic.
How about that?
There you go. There's one for you all to debate in the comments.
The real Don Revie, courtesy of the real Christopher Evans.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. You can subscribe, you know the drill. We're on all the platforms. Share, comment, and thank you for all your kind words. We're back now. We're going to be back with plenty of episodes, and we shall see you soon.